steel and aluminum imports. The move invited swift retaliation from the EU and Canada, which placed retaliatory trade duties on roughly $21 billion of U.S. products, from computers to water heaters. The EU, meanwhile, targeting $28 billion in U.S. goods, including beef, poultry, and eggs. Today, Canada's foreign minister with a message for Americans that Canada is not the one driving up the cost of groceries. President Trump vowing what we're going to be charging them. On Wall Street, the market volatility over recession worries ease as the rate of inflation slowed in February. Wall Street ended mixed. Our Gabe Gutierrez reports tonight from Canada.
Welcoming Ireland Prime Minister to the Oval Office.
Very good news.
President Trump today's better than expected inflation numbers.
Inflation is way down, and it's based on what we've done.
But tonight, his trade war is escalating. Canada and the European Union slapping new retaliatory tariffs on the U.S., including the EU hitting Kentucky with 50% tariffs. But the president's latest round of tariffs, 25% on steel and aluminum imports from around the world.
The European Union treats us very badly. They have for years.
President Trump saying today he'll consider raising the tax on cars imported from Europe, which is currently 2.5%. The EU tariff on imported American cars is 10%.
So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. If they charge us percent or 2% or 200%, then that's what we're charging them. There's nothing more fair than that.
Stephen Capone employs 100 people making steel products in Massachusetts and supports Trump's new tariffs. He says cheaper Canadian steel has decimated his business.
We have to revitalize our industry, our economy. We can't rely on foreign for anything critical.
But Trump's new tariffs are devastating for Canada. In the working-class city of Drummondville, manufacturing is huge, and about 18% of the jobs here are linked to the U.S. What would your message be to President Trump?
Stop the tariff.
Jean-Francois Nadeau has worked at Montreatec, a metal processing company, for 25 years. At one point yesterday, President Trump threatened 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum. What is this uncertainty doing to you?
It's giving us, we are kind of becoming crazy right now. It's going too fast.
Yeah.
On the morning it says something, on the afternoon it says something else.
And don't get him started on Trump floating the idea of annexing Canada, making it the 51st state.
The first time was, he's making a great joke. Now it's not a joke anymore.
Louis-Charles Elbady works for the mayor's office in Drummondville, where he says some 3,000 Canadian jobs are now at risk. The tariff turmoil potentially driving up prices on both sides of the border. Did this almost feel like a betrayal?
I mean, to some extent, yeah, because America's our greatest friend, right?
Again, we know the U.S. and Canadian officials will be meeting tomorrow. Meantime, there's a pretty big headline involving a potential federal government shutdown. What do we know?
That's right, Lester. Senate Republicans need at least 7 Democrats to support their funding bill to keep the government open. But tonight, top Democrat Chuck Schumer just said the GOP does not have the votes, indicating Democrats are prepared to block the Republican bill with the deadline on Friday. Lester?
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. Christine Romans is here. We saw the markets close mixed after falling earlier in the week, and people wondering about the economy. What can you tell us?
In days here, annual inflation improved percent. Here is so important. The trade war underway is not yet reflected in these numbers. Take today's new tariffs on aluminum and steel and look at this chart from Barclays Bank. It shows a typical car is 50% steel, 11% aluminum. That's part of why there are forecasts that the average price of a car sold in the U.S. could rise by thousands of dollars. So while Wall Street seemed to calm down a little today, given that the president has promised more tariffs to start just weeks from now, it's the months ahead that could see some real changes in the price.
Going to be a while before we see how this plays out.
That's right.
All right, Christine Romans, thanks. Now to the new fallout over the mass layoffs at the Department of Education. All of it part of the president's attempt to eventually abolish the agency. Kelly O'Donnell has late details.
Business suspended at the Department of Education today.
I am
very, very angry about this.
Sweeping terminations. More than 1,300 career employees hit with this email describing difficult news that their organizational unit is being the 45-year-old federal agency workforce is effectively cut in half. Today, the president defended the
badly, but showed up to work.
The president would need Congress to shutter the agency.
We're going to move education into the states instead of bureaucrats working in Washington.
However, education officials say regional offices were firing all employees, including Sharia Smith in Texas.
My family is now trying to overcome the loss of my income.
An attorney, Smith helped students who raised civil rights issues in their local schools.
This administration is now eliminating the only agency that was in place to make sure that those rights were enforced.
But others welcome the president's education overhaul.
Well, I'm actually very optimistic about the change.
Megan Degenfeld, Wyoming Superintendent of Public Instruction, says this reduces red tape.
This is going to provide a lot more flexibility, streamlining those funds to the states and put